Welcome, everyone. So today's program is brought to you with funding from the Iowa Energy Center. This is the Iowa Community Solar Webinar. Right now, we have a question from Mark Frank. And so, Mark, would you like to ask that question? Let me stop sharing my screen, and that way we can see our questions people as we are doing that.
Wow, actually ask it with my voice over not muted audio.
Okay, that's fine.
So my question was, could a person invest in community solar who is not served by that utility and receive a payment based on the energy generated? My utility is not presently providing community solar.
And who would like to answer that question? Reggie or Joel, are you able to do that?
If my microphone's on, I'll be happy to take a shot at it from the rural electric perspective.
Yes, I think it is. Go ahead, Joel. Reggie.
Yeah, I think for the subscription-based programs that the rural electrics currently have, in order to subscribe to those, I believe all of those require you to be a member consumer of the cooperative. I don't know if there's potentially some legal implications within the question relative to the assigned service territory law in Iowa. I guess I haven't given it a lot of thought, but that would be my initial thoughts. There may be some obstacles there to overcome.
I think you're right. I think there's a Securities and Exchange Commission or something that would be concerned about whether you were investing in these for a profit or if you're just investing in them to reduce your utility bills. Is there anyone else that can answer that question?
Pat,
yes.
In terms of Cedar Falls' project, the question was whether someone from out of the service territory could participate. Oddly enough, we've had a number of customers call during the, or a number of entities call during the drive who are from outside the service territory. And what we've decided to do is there's no way for us to give them credit since they don't have an account with CFU. So we encourage them to make a contribution to a customer who does have a CFU account. We've had folks look at making charitable contributions to lots of nonprofit organizations in town, and then those organizations can actually purchase the share and get the credits. There are folks who have looked at buying shares on behalf of family members who have CFU accounts, that type of involvement. But otherwise, if they don't have a CFU account, there's just no way that we can, in our particular project, that we can get them the benefits of a share in the project.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see. I'm not sure. I seem to be a bit muted. Let's see. Are you able to hear me? Okay. All right.
I hear you, Pat.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Okay. All right. So we have those answers. I don't see any other questions coming up from our participants. And by the way, we had 19 participants here. Some have had to leave because of lunch, I presume. But we still have 18 participants altogether here. And Carol Yates is here, and she has some questions as well. On your chat box, it'll say from Patricia Higby, but that's because she's using my computer. So this question is from Carol. And Carol, do you want me to read it or do you want to ask it? Okay, she asked that I read it. So here's a question. What is driving this great interest in solar? And maybe as a second question there, how are federal and state tax credits handled with community solar projects? Reggie or Joel or Aaron, do you want to answer that question?
Yeah, this is Reggie. I'll be happy to take a stab at both of those first, and anyone else that can add a perspective. In terms of what's driving the great interest in solar, I think we're seeing this technology come down in price. I think certain folks in Iowa are interested in it in terms of investing in for certainty in their electric bills. Others are interested in investing in solar from an environmental perspective. So I think there's a lot of different perspectives that folks look to invest in solar and drive the interest there. In terms of how the state and federal tax credits are handled with community solar projects, for the rural electric cooperatives, even though this is a very, very complicated and legal area, we tend to, or our membership tends to partner with entities that have some tax appetites to be able to take advantage of those tax credits so that we can maximize the economic value back out to our member consumers for these projects.
Thank you, Reggie.
This is Joel, and I'll just add to what Reggie said. Yeah, I think, the solar has been around for decades, but I think the recent dramatic decrease in the cost of the components and the overall cost of the systems is a big driver for the interest. There certainly are the federal and state incentives and other incentives, so that those are all driving interest in solar. As far as the tax credits, I think Reggie said it's a complicated area. It certainly is. I think many people who develop them seek an entity that can take advantage of some of those tax credits to lower the overall cost and lower the participation to the customers or the participants, so that they aren't trying to handle that on their own. So I think simple solar, if you can lower the cost and keep it simple for the participants, that's a good objective.
One other thing to add to that, maybe, Pat, with regard to the community solar and the interest driving that, one of the rural electric cooperatives that's involved with the community solar has identified that there's about a 19% savings by going for a member consumer utilizing the community-based approach as opposed to an individual installation on their home. So there are some advantages for that.
Oh, that's excellent. Actually, I think you're helping to answer our next question. And this is from Mark Frank. Do you want to ask your question again, Mark?
Sure. It's really kind of two questions. In some of the sample pictures you've shown, the panels are mounted above dedicated parcels of land. Any thoughts on building covered parking at existing parking lots? Maybe providing extra value, providing the covered parking while reducing the cost of land purchase?
Yeah, this is Joel. Certainly that could be done. The nice thing about solar panels are they're modular, and then they can be placed in multiple areas: ground mount, roof mount, parking lot covering. So it really goes into maybe some of what is the project's objectives and what are the economics of various alternatives of ground mount or parking lot covering, or even a rooftop mount project.
And then the second part of that was, that's the part Pat was alluding to. How do the cost of community solar compare with placing panels on my own property? Is there an economy of scale by doing all these installations at once? If I do the equivalent of, in a community solar project, 30 households, is it quite a bit cheaper than doing 30 separate household installations?
Yeah, this is Reggie. Essentially, the one cooperative that I've seen numbers on that is an indication that there's about a 19% savings for their project relative to an individual on-site installation. So that gives some sense of that there is a price differential there and some advantages to member consumers for the cooperatives, at least working together on a community-based project as opposed to an individual installation.
Thank you, Reggie. And I think Aaron can add a little bit to that.
Yeah, and kind of another dimension. We have also seen the price per watt is a little bit different. I would say somewhere in the ballpark of what Reggie's talking, maybe even a little bit more. Another dimension is the operations and maintenance. At least with our particular project, people are people are paying upfront once, and then, you know, if there's 30 different rooftops, those are possibly 30 different angles, 30 different roofs to make sure to keep free from trees, or possibly you'll need to site the angle favorably so snow isn't a problem. You know, if you had a flat roof and you didn't site it at a high enough angle, snow could be an issue. There's those types of kind of ongoing considerations. There's, you know, different inverters for each of them. So it's just a different setup. You know, while it would be more distributed throughout the community, it just it really depends on the pros and cons for what your community or your particular project needs are.
Okay, thank you, Erin. I know that the panels that I installed on the roof of my garage about 2 years ago was a little over $3 a watt, and the prediction that CFU gave us was that their panels would be a little over $2 a watt. So that's just one personal experience that I have there. Okay, I have a hard question now. You might have noticed that we don't have any of the investor-owned utilities participating today. And so I'm not sure who can help answer this question, but here it is. How would community solar work when tied to or interconnected with a public held utility, such as Alliant or Mid-American, in respect to community purchase of solar production? I don't know, Reggie or Joel, can you help with that one?
Yeah, I guess I haven't really thought about it from an investor-owned utility perspective. I've been focused mostly on the electric cooperative perspective. So to comment on how it may or may not work in their areas, I'm not sure. They obviously, both Alliant and Mid-American, are very, very well respected electric utilities in Iowa and have very capable folks of figuring out how this might work in their systems as well. I just don't know if they have any projects going on right now or not.
Yeah, this is Joel. Likewise, I can't really speak for them, or unfortunately, I don't have much input on that question.
Yeah, I don't know about Mid-American. You know, knowing that they are investing in wind turbines, it seems like it would be a shorter step for them to go to solar investment as well. For the Alliant Energy Group, they are doing something interesting with Indian Creek Nature Center. I believe it's some sort of power purchase agreement that they're doing there. So I kind of think that we might see more coming from the investor-owned utilities later. Let's see. We have from something from Solarland Solutions. I hope that you've got your chat boxes open so that you can also read these. They say, Patricia, a good example would be the Minnesota CSG projects in Excel territory. Oh, okay. That might have been a private chat. So that Solarland Solutions, would you like to participate?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
This is Mike Berry. I'm president of Solarland Solutions. My company is actively involved in siting community solar garden in Minnesota, and actually we're also working on the Dairyland RFP in Minnesota and Wisconsin. And my point was just to say that if you're interested in seeing how that would work in publicly traded utility areas, I think what's going on in Minnesota would be an interesting case study for how it could work in Iowa, because there is a really active community solar arena in the Twin Cities area right now. It's actually kind of booming right now. A lot of big companies are getting involved in it. So I just wanted to add that comment, and that's it.
All right. Well, thank you, Mike, for participating with us. I've heard that Denver is also a hot spot for community solar, so it's good to know that we're not alone in this. And Mark Frank has added another chat here. Community solar seems like a potentially large growth area. Yes, it is. I just read a report from National Renewable Energy Laboratories, and they noted that only about half of houses in America and only half of our businesses are able to have solar energy on their roof or on their properties because of different issues they have. But with the community solar, you could go up to 100% participation. So that's really great.
I talked to her on the phone.
I see we've got some background noise, so I'm going to do some muting here. Okay, but Mark Frank, you did have another question there. So I'm going to let you go ahead and unmute. And
Yeah, so with that potential large growth, are there regulatory or legislative barriers in Iowa that could be removed or changed to make this easier and less expensive?
Okay, Joel or Reggie?
I'll be happy to take a shot at that, Pat. I think I'm unmuted. Is that
Yes.
correct? Yeah, good question, Mark. This is Reggie. I think as we look at that from the rural electric cooperative perspective and policy, both at the federal and state level, that's something we're continuing to watch and keep our ear to the pavement relative to our membership of any obstacles they may see as developing community solar. Certainly this past legislative session, we saw the legislature kind of tip their hat to some of the utility scale projects, which would certainly be some economic incentives into community solar and help for that. So that's one area that I think we can point to specifically that our Iowa legislature has taken a leadership role on. And I know the electric cooperatives were involved with that, and I believe the municipals as well in getting that achieved. So that's probably the area, and probably the most challenging areas in terms of any economic incentives coming from the government, making sure that the business models of the electric cooperatives are able to receive those benefits so that we can take advantage of any community solar.
Yeah, this is Joel. Yeah, the Iowa legislature did provide some additional incentives that could be used for community solar projects, which is certainly going to help. I think a big barrier is also just because it's a new area that people are getting into is getting educated on the best practices and looking at case studies, seeing how other, as some of the projects in Iowa get some more experience, that will certainly help additional projects down the road maybe do things the best way.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. So I'm going to share my screen here. And I'm not seeing any more questions. So I wanted to give you something else here. I'd very much like you to be aware of the recordings for this that are available on YouTube. And so if you will just go to YouTube, and that's just youtube.com, and search A-CEEE Solar Energy Fair, you'll be able to pull up the 4 different presentations that we had at our solar fair earlier this spring. And so if you want to learn more about Cedar Falls' Simple Solar, that's on there. If you're interested in federal and state solar tax credits, Carol Yates did a wonderful description of those, and it's available. PV solar in a wind state. This one's got all the numbers that you could possibly want about the economics of solar and installing solar. And then we also have community solar. To learn more about Warren McKenna's story, he's really a hero in Iowa with the solar installation, and you can see him and learn his story there with the community solar video. And I will be putting this recording of this webinar also up so that you'll be able to see it as well. So I'm looking for questions. I don't see any there. Let's see, Carol, would you have any questions that you want to share with our group? No, she's nodding her head no. All right, so I'm going to just pull up one more slide for us. And please pardon me while I do a little bit of work here. I'm working in the background. As I said, this was our very first webinar, and so I'm so pleased that you were able to join us, and I thank you for your patience. So your hosts were Pat Higby, myself. Carol Yates was in the background helping out as well. We're from the Center for Energy and Environmental Education at the University of Northern Iowa. And if you have any questions about this program, you can call us at 319-273-6012, or you can email me at Higby, Higby, @uni.edu.